My name is Kemo Fati. I am the director of Green Up Gambia, a civil society, local NGO that we're working towards reforestation efforts, raising the eco-consciousness of the people in terms of their environmental responsibilities, and also, serving as check and balances for the government. Green Up Gambia has been in existence since 2016. That's when we started as a project under Climate Watch the Gambia. Climate Watch the Gambia is an NGO that have been in existence since 2014, and then we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so what we did was to approach Climate Watch the Gambia, and then we find a way to partner with them to work on our project called the Green Up 10,000 Trees. So this Green Up 10,000 Trees was the first project that we initiated together with Climate Watch the Gambia, and then we supported farmers in the North Bank region with over 10,000 trees. But at this point, our aim was to reforest, but we cannot reforest with the indigenous tree species, so we had to look into economic beneficent trees. And then over the years, since we saw that more and more young people have embraced this action towards climate, and tree planting has become a lot attractive to young people, then we started incorporating certain projects like the Summer Go Green and the One Youth, One Tree, which involves all young people across the Gambia to try and engage in tree planting, and also during the summer where we reach out to schools and help the students to plant trees in their school, and also create things like the green clubs. These are clubs that help to take care of those seedlings within the school zones, because we wanted to use the most low-cost approach to our project. What if we do not have any resource at all? In 2019, we started looking at very critical components that, in fact, I consider the biggest hazard in terms of the Gambia's environment. Green Up Gambia has taken extensive steps in trying to even help the Kanifing Municipal Council, as well as educate the schools and the locals on how they can manage their waste at home level, even by starting with compost or introducing the 2 or 3 bin systems that people can start segregating their waste, because we understand that the first step to waste management is not generating waste. But if you are generating, you find out where to put what and where to put what. This way it can help us to deal with these issues, as and accordingly. And in terms of policy, we have engaged people like the National Assembly, the lawmakers. So we understand, like in the Gambia, for instance, our laws are very nice. We have the National Environment Management Act. But when this law was being made, it is a little devoid of waste management laws, because by then waste was not a problem. But 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, it became a problem. So they bring in the anti-littering regulations. These regulations are just to, serve as a buffer to help create a cleaner, there are certain fines there. But what we want to advocate for is to have the waste bill to be ratified and passed on to Parliament. So this way we have stronger laws that can really, make a difference, because when we see all these second-hand items being imported, they end up just getting burnt here at the landfill. So when we see all of these cars that are coming in from Germany, why are you burning cars in Germany and bringing them in Gambia? It's one atmosphere, and we are polluting the atmosphere and talking about climate still. So these are some of the ways that we can be able to impact change within our communities and within our country to halt environmental degradation and forestry. But added to all of this work, the most important and the most affected people are the rural farmers. That's why within the urban region, we can create eco-consciousness and environmental awareness. But what we need to factor in are those people in the hinterland whose lives and livelihoods are depending on ecosystems, goods and services. And all of these are climate-sensitive activities. We are looking at almost 70 to 80% of all economic activities are predominantly agriculture, and yet this is contributing only 26% to GDP. There's a huge gap. So these people need to be strengthened. How? Economic-wise. We can restore our land, and at the same time, we can be able to boost the farmers' income. When you look at the Gambia, we are losing our ground. The power, the fertility of our ground is going simply because of actions that we are taking. We have only 2 seasons, unlike the Europeans. This is the dry and the wet season. So in the dry season, our soil is subjected to, wind action. And in the rainy season, our soil is subjected to water action. And both wind and water are wiping off significant quantities of fertile topsoil. And they are dumping this into the riverbed. This is also affecting another ecosystem different from our woodlands. And this is because of the treelessness there is around. Most of our species, our larger wildlife species, have disappeared together with the original forest cover. So we at Green Up Gambia feel like the survival of this wildlife still remaining with us and the setting aside of protected natural habitats for them is our concern, because we feel that it will be really tragic if this priceless natural heritage, the product of millions of years of evolution, should be further endangered or lost only for the want of a proper concern. So according to the Banjul Declaration, these were excerpts from the Banjul Declaration. This is a document that our government has put forward since 1977 to protect the flora and fauna. And today, 1977 to now, we have lost more forests than we have actually protected. It's not like whether we are trying to convince them. This is a reality that we all are seeing and we all are feeling. But sometimes even these governments, they have a problem of how to implement and where to get these resources. You know, for instance, their plans are always based on, planning for what we cannot finance. For instance, the Gambia, in 2002, the National Assembly, they spent $200 million to replenish the beach around Banjul area because the beach was coming into the cemetery. It was wiping out the cemetery, almost coming onto the road. Infrastructures that are costing millions of dollars. So we have these vulnerabilities that are within our own communities, and we spend resources that we could have used for poverty alleviation to fight climate change. So they are actually recognizing our efforts, and we have been trying to work hand in glove with the government to see how best can we protect the Gambia's ecosystem with the little natural resources, and how can we scale up reforestation efforts. We are currently working on this Pan-African initiative that is called the Great Green Wall. This is an initiative that is to plant trees from Senegal all the way down to Djibouti. So it's an 8,000 kilometer long and 15 kilometers wide. This can help to halt the desert from coming in, and through this we can be able to regenerate land and also help revive back communities and give them their dignity that they deserve. But most of the people also think that this wall is a physical barrier to the desert. No. It's a mosaic of, different projects and different land use components that we can use to overall, to create a livelihood change within the sub-Saharan and the Sahelian region. So it's not just about planting trees, but it's a movement we are trying to, build in an eco-consciousness within the masses so that we can move together. In terms of getting involved in climate action, there are very many ways that you can do this in your own home before you even reach here, and also when you reach here. So we are trying to preach the ways for people to live sustainably. So in living sustainably, you have to look at things that are climate smart. Do not waste. The problem of climate change is convenience, greed, and ego. So we want people everywhere. Once you are inspired by this action, the first change starts within yourself. Once you start doing this in your own home, you are with us in spirit. And we obviously need volunteers, because most of the time we do not have the resources required to pay paid staff to actually stay there and work. So we depend on volunteer action. So if anybody want to get involved, donate time, you can always come and support Green Up Gambia in terms of our reforestation efforts to propagate more seedlings. But always remember, even when you are in your own home, you can take climate action. Long-term plans, we are looking at the Great Green Wall restoration, and short-term plans, we are looking at how best to raise more awareness, in terms of reaching out to more communities and establishing seedling propagation centers in schools. All of these actions are connected to one Pan-African agenda, that we want to stop the desert from coming in, and we want to revive the state of our soils. We want to get back our land. We want to get the productive capacity of this land. Because like I said, I am not only joking when I say that we are losing significant quantities of fertile topsoil, because we have these fertilizers, these pesticides that are being imported and used by these local women. So the fact that they have used this for considerable length of time, it has really affected our soils. It has killed some microorganisms to an extent that without these fertilizers, you can't even grow the crops anymore. And these fertilizers, they just take the microorganisms away. So without the fertilizer, you cannot grow on the soil, so you've just forced somebody to actually remain poor. So this has even caused an influx of young people into Europe because they feel like their parents and their grandparents have been farming for centuries and decades. And no cumulative benefit, no wealth has been accumulated. So the only way they think they can accumulate wealth is in Europe, where, based on stereotypes, it rains like money, or money rains. We feel that's why most of this migration is being impacted heavily, because the young people feel like they can no longer depend on the productive capacity of the land. This is why we are trying to explain to them that here at the backwater dump site, with this waste problem, we can even solve the problem of the forest. Because we are seeing people cutting the forest to produce charcoal. And in here we have tons and tons of biomass coming in that we can harvest and make biochar or charcoal briquettes that people can use, which is so eco-friendly. We can take all the organic components that is coming in. People throw in a lot of food waste and organic waste with this fish waste. People are taking that and making pure compost topsoil in it. This is what needs to be used in those gardens before the government subsidizes for these fertilizers, which are already expiring, causing trouble around. So we have to be able to think in the right direction. They need to even understand, how do we regenerate this ground again? That's the first instance. Otherwise, it's even a problem already for them. This is what we are saying. But on a larger scale, the state should be involved in these actions, and they should be the one to discourage the importation of these kinds of things, because to some extent, they know the damage it is doing. It's also a question of awareness across everyone else within the people who are using. Not only the state should do it, we have other NGOs here in Brikama who are doing it, and they're giving to the women's gardens and all of that. But even added to that, sometimes these women gardens want to still buy the fertilizer because they think it's powerful. Because when you put it there on the plant, you see the magic growing. My message to the world will be that we have to really be careful as human beings over the years. We understand that life has been existing in this world for thousands of years. There has been no serious changes. We looked at history, we saw that people were living in ancient civilization. No problem of extinction of other species until just the time that we have hit this industrial revolution. Where we pumped out so much fossil fuel from under the ground, polluted this earth so much that we have now left the earth almost, dying. Millions of species have already gotten extinct. So where are we leaving this world now? What kind of a future are we leaving for our children? So it's not a question of rich countries or poor countries. It's a question of humanity to change your ways. The world has enough, as Gandhi said, to satisfy everybody's need, not our greed.
My name is JC Gabonziza, and I am a member of the Green Up Gambia, and I'm actually a volunteer planting trees to reduce deforestation. That's our main goal, to eliminate deforestation and to make Gambia greener again. Today we're planting trees. Well, we're planting about 5,000 trees here in the botanical garden, yes. Well, it all started when I went to Rwanda, my parents' native country. I went to my grandpa's farm, and it was really beautiful. It was really green. Many bean farms and groundnut and maize. So I was like, what if I could do that in Gambia? See how it would go. So I started off by planting beans at the house. It's like, wow, really nice. And I told Baba about it. Then started planting more. And then we started planting moringa in polypots. He brought the polypots and the compost. We planted at the back of our house. And then they grew, and then we started to plant more and more and more. The more plants we plant, the more oxygen we get, and no more, let's say, dry air and no more shade. But with plants and trees, there's shade, fruits, and yeah, a lot of breeze, nice breeze, yeah. And it's well nice to see the Gambia green. Yeah, thank you.